Good morning, everybody. This is Megan Cadell with the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. It looks like we've got quite a few folks on the call now, so we'll go ahead and get started. And I believe introductions are first. So Christina or Susan, would one of you like to lead introductions?
Good morning, everyone. This is Christina Mills at CFILC. Thanks for joining today's Quack and Quack meeting. Who do we have with us from the north?
And this is Megan. To unmute yourself, you can dial *6 or hit unmute on the Zoom platform or your phone.
Anyone from the north with us today? I see a lot of folks muted.
This is Brian in Grass Valley.
Brian, welcome.
Hello, this is Donna Lynn Showstrand from TSIL.
Michael Galvin from Krill.
Donna Smiley from Krill.
Armando
from RL.
Armando Respuero with CIL.
Keith Miller from CalLife.
Samaro from SBILC.
Dolores Nason from Disabled Resources Center and her staff.
Yolanda Ramirez with CalLife.
Peter Mendoza with MCIL. Alberta Center for Independent Living.
Hi, this is Russell Rawlings and April Wick from Resources for Independent Living in Sacramento. Can anyone hear us?
Sound really far away, Russell.
Okay, I am far away, but if you can hear me.
Kinda.
Sorry.
Thank you.
This is Juan Orantes from Disability Services and Legal Center in Santa Rosa.
Good morning, this is Donna Lynn Showstrand from TSIL. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Anybody else we missed?
Anna Ogren, Freed.
If you're looking for
Hi, this is Armando Respuero with Tri-County Independent Living.
If you're looking for the South, you got Larry, Chelsea, and LaKenya from Skill.
Thank you. Anyone else that we haven't heard from?
This is Brian Hollander from ILRC in Santa Barbara.
Welcome.
This is Marielle Creasel from Disability Community Resource Center in Los Angeles.
Anyone else?
This is Megan. Susanna from RICV said she's here in the chat.
Great. Okay. Looks like we have a total of 23 participants with us today. If there's no one else that we haven't missed doing an introduction, we will go forward and go over the review of the Zoom controls and phone access.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to be with you again. So today we're talking about how to be a good quack. You are a QAC, not a QAK, and I'll tell you a little bit about the difference between those in a second. This is an overview of information that you'll find in the state of California's QAC QAK guide. I emailed it to, I think, mostly the executive directors this morning. I'm still putting together my executive director / project contacts, so forgive me for that. I'll go through this morning and email it to everybody that might have been different on that list. And if there's anybody else you want to add who wasn't on your original list, just let me know. So the first requirement of being a good quack is to read through that very detailed and a little daunting guide from the state of California. I'll just, we just got it. I think today's Wednesday. So I haven't read it in deep. Well, I've read a lot of it, but I was reading it as I was putting together this presentation. I'll just be honest. So some of it's a little repetitive, but there's some pretty good info in there. So you definitely need to read it. It has checklists and more in-depth information about all the things we're going to go over today. And so use it Also, just, and I will say this a couple of times, many of the county complete count committees are holding trainings on being a QAC and a QAK, and those are happening fairly soon, since they want you to get up and running by, during February. So if you're not connected with your county complete count committee for your area yet, you should definitely connect with them. Also, the area community-based the administrative, the ACVOs, which are the larger organizations like United Ways and community foundations who gave out funding to groups locally, many of you have that funding, are also holding or administering those QAC trainings. So you can connect with them to find out more information. And we're going to try to collect that and send it out to you to make that easy. Like I said, the QAC guide makes it seem a little daunting. It has a lot of detail, but we've also heard that it's not going to be it shouldn't be that difficult to be a QAC. There's some rules for setup and for running it, but once you're doing it, it'll be fine. These are not things that you haven't done before as far as serving the public. So we'll go over these things today. We're leaving plenty of time at the end for questions, and we'll give you everything we know. Sort of the thing about QACs, like everything in the census, it's all happening very quickly. So we get information one day and then we get different information the next day. So just to let you know that we will keep you up to date on everything that we learn about QACs as we hear it. So some of the things that we're going to talk about today is what is a QAC, a QAC, the timeline. Christine is going to go over the equipment and facility requirements. There are QAC rules that need to be followed, QAC staffing tips and rules, and then there are some QAC resources like the QAC guide, which you have now, and then the state is putting together what they're calling a QAC in a box, and we let the state know that you are all QACs, so hopefully they're mailing those materials directly to you. We'll confirm that though. So what are QACs and QACs? A QAC is a questionnaire assistance center, and a QAK is a questionnaire action kiosk. And they're both places where the public can get information about the census in their native language. But QACs actually provide online or phone access to complete the questionnaire with assistance. QACs, the big difference between QACs and QACs and QAKs is that QACs have staff to answer questions about completing the census questionnaire and also to help people with the equipment if they need it. So we are QACs, we are QACs. If you want to be a QAK, I think there can be a QAC and a QAK in the same place, but we signed up to be QACs. So when? QACs have to open during the self-response period from March 12th to the end of April 2020. So we have some time to prepare you to be a QAC. We also know that they may want some QACs to remain open longer during the non-response period, which non-response follow-up period, in case there are people who can straggle in and still take the census questionnaire, and that goes through July. I just want to strongly recommend that you coordinate with your county complete count committee, because they're going to have those committees. A lot of them are doing all of the QAC setup and training. They know a lot. They've been doing it with other groups throughout the county. So I'm sure they will be happy to answer questions about anything that comes up that's more about being local. And they'll also know where the other QACs in your county are going to be. And the state of California says sometime in March, which seems they are going to release a complete list of QACs by county. So that will be really good to know, because one of the things that comes with coordination with your county complete count committee and other QACs is if there's a language that we can't support somebody who walks in the door to help them with, there might be a QAC 2 blocks away who can. So we want to make sure that we know what each other's resources are so we can coordinate that way.
This is Christina. I just also want to add that, you know, we've done a lot of work to make sure that the California Census is as accessible as possible. And another reason why we strongly encourage you to coordinate and participate with your county complete count committees and local affiliates is because there are specific disability and ADA specific requirements, and they're going to look to you as experts in the community, as people with disabilities who might be able to assist them, and also making sure that their options for quacks and quacks are accessible too. So you will be a resource for them as much as they will be a resource for you.
Yes, and this is Susan. It was really good to see that the quack guide has information about, I mean, it tells the QACs, one of the, you know, some of the rules are you need to be compliant with the ADA and accessible. What it doesn't go into is digital accessibility much, which I think is going to be a challenge for some of the QACs, but that's again why we're part of this project. Anyway, I'm going to hand it over to Christina to go over the equipment.
Yes, thank you, Susan. So, you know, in the IL world, all of you have, or I believe all of you still have, consumer workstations. And when I read through the guide and looked at the facility and the setup for a QAC, it really hit me that we're talking about an ILC consumer workstation, but with more privacy. So think about it in those terms, but maybe with a voting twist, where when you go to the polling place, you have some, boundaries around you so that people can't see what you're doing when you're doing your vote. So your consumer workstations can certainly serve. One of them can serve as your QAC for your agency. It just needs to be private. It also, like your consumer workstations, needs to have both internet access, obviously a computer or tablet, and they also really encourage a phone for folks that maybe aren't as comfortable using the internet. We also want to show you that they're in the guide on page 14 specifically, where it goes over tips. It would be really important to make sure that you have some specific web browsers on the computer that you're going to be using as the QAC for folks to go to if they have some questions or need some additional resources when putting together or when taking the actual survey at your QAC. In addition to that, there are specific requirements and then there are recommendations. I'm pretty much going to be focusing, as Susan did, on the requirements and not necessarily the recommendations. For example, the floor plan and the privacy controls of a QAC setup. I think, honestly, when reading this, again, it was a consumer workstation area. You all know what works as accessible for folks in the community that come and use those areas, and you sort of already have that floor plan set. It's just the privacy controls that need to be put in place. I think the other really important thing is the signage that we need to have available. So posters, it needs to be clearly marked that that workstation is the actual QAC area and is designated specifically for that only for privacy controls. In addition, making sure that all staff, including any volunteers that might work at your center, letting them know and putting the badges, in addition to the guide that Susan had sent out, there were also there was a PDF attached with QAC badges, and anybody, you're welcome to use those. They do highly require them. I don't know if they're going to be going out and checking them, but I thought that was pretty funny. However, it might make somebody ask you, what is that badge about? What is that? So it could be helpful, and also advertising and outreaching to folks that aren't familiar with it or haven't heard about it. But making sure your receptionist and everybody in your agency knows that you are a QAC and that therefore anyone in the community could come in and use your QAC. We specifically, obviously, want people with disabilities, and that's why we decided to get on this journey. But we want to make sure that, you know, if anybody came to our center, we wouldn't want to turn them away if this was the place that is most accessible and that they could take the survey, the census survey. So in addition to that, pages 14 through 16, again, have all of the specific requirements that local trainings would also include. I don't think you all need to know about the ADA specifics. I know you already do that stuff. The post multilingual QAC signage, making sure, again, in addition to your posters, letting folks know what kind of language assistance they could have on site. And early on, Susan had asked some of you, or all of you, what languages you have at your center that could be provided both verbally and in writing. Making sure that that is known so that folks that are multilingual coming in can get the support they need if that comes up. In addition to that, and I know some of you can specifically speak to this because you were advocates on it in your local complete count committees, but making sure that folks know that they can request accommodations if needed when taking the census survey. And I specifically know that that came up in the LA County complete count meetings where there was some debate over whether or not reasonable accommodations could be provided to an individual that needs assistance during the census survey. So hats off to you guys for advocating and making sure that we got it into the guide. And then last but not least, making sure that there's also identification outside of your office, maybe something on the door or in the window to also identify you as a QAC.
Right, and this is Susan, and I'll just add, following up on what about the reasonable accommodations and providing assistance. You know, at first, the census folks were kind of unsure about assisting, like really assisting people with the equipment to respond to the survey, or explaining what the questions meant, because that meant that people might let you know what how they wanted to respond. And yesterday I was in San Diego, and it was pretty clear that as long as your staff, and we'll talk about this a little later, make sure that the people who come and need assistance know that you are not U.S. Census Bureau employees. They seem kind of fine with everything now, because they understand that people are going to need assistance. You know, people have trouble filling out forms. They have trouble understanding the language, the written language. So it's just, they've really sort of backed off on saying, you know, you can't assist because of privacy and confidentiality. They just want to make sure that the public knows we are not U.S. Census employees when we do that.
But in addition, I just want to also say that, I totally lost it now. You just reminded me too. Aside from us making sure that everyone who comes in knows that we're not U.S. Census workers, that folks in our complete count committees understand what it means to also provide a reasonable accommodation. I know that specifically that was hard to fight for, but we pointed out that some people with disabilities may not be able to read and therefore may need the questions read to them. There's all sorts of different accommodation needs, and we want to make sure our whole point in getting on this road is, again, to get as many people with disabilities to take the census survey. So if that means providing reasonable accommodations, then that's what we need to do. That's how important it is to make sure that people with disabilities are accounted for. And we really hope, ultimately, that we get more people with disabilities accounted for this time versus last time. And even though that's very hard to quantify, it will be great to show folks how many individuals took the census survey at your center as a result of independent living centers being QACs. Last thing is, we've been, making sure that you guys got your contracts in. One of the big reasons why we wanted to confirm that is that we have our marketing and outreach staff, Kyla from our office and Lawrence from DREDF, have put together a draft press release. So one of the ways we're going to market that you're a QAC is that we're going to put out a press release. So just want to alert you to that and make sure that you go over the tips for talking to the press and the requirements around that on page 16. Of course, you will get a copy of the press release. It will just identify your center and that you are a QAC and that you guys are a resource for folks in your community.
Right, and then you're welcome to share that press release with your local press also to make sure it gets into your local newspapers or on local television. I'm seeing, I saw when I was down in San Diego yesterday, there were like many events going on, and some of them were on the news, which was just great. So both radio and on television. So I think the local county committees and the ACBOs are all working with the press. So I think the more you connect with them, the better. One of the other requirements of the QAC is which is nothing new for any of us who get money from the government, is data collection and reporting. So on page 36 of the QAC guide, there's a visitor interaction form, and the California Census Office just wants us to track traffic. And that form, you make copies of it, fill it out, depending on if you have a lot of people coming in, you would be doing it daily. If they're not so many, you could do it weekly. I think you can also probably use they'll have to report with these forms. Just hold on to them, but you might want to create your own sign-in sheets because you probably will use this data for other reporting, other assistance reasons also. So I think that if there are any questions about it or needed in another format, because everything here was a PDF, but if you want, I'm not sure if I didn't check to see if this particular PDF was fillable. I have a funny suspect it's not. So it probably needs to be printed and written out, but I can look into that. So anyway, you don't have to do anything. You just need to hold on to them. I assume they're going to collect the data from us at some point, but I don't know exactly when that's going to be. Staffing. So we already talked about the fact that they wanted language capacity, and that's why we collected it. So the more multilingual staff you can provide to the QAC, the better. They want staff to go through training, and like I said, there are going to be trainings aimed at staff provided. We'll see if we can get some of those that you can watch a video too. Your staff will have to wear, if they're I don't know if you're going to assign one person to do this or a few people from your centers will be working on it different days. They'll have to wear those QAC badges because I think that's one of those things that is important to the U.S. Census Bureau, that nobody knows we're not official federal employees. That the staff be knowledgeable on the equipment. Like I said, we're going to give you iPads to also use. I don't know if you're going to use your other stations, but if you're helping people, the iPads are really great also because they have a lot of different digital accessibility features. So people need to be familiar with those. And I believe we're going to do a training on those. We're going to set them up partially up and also do a training on them. Yep. They'll have to complete the visitor interaction form and know how to access language interpreters when that language is not available at your center. So I know some of you have access to telephone interpreters services. If you don't, we can give you names for those, like I said, we can also we're going to encourage you to find out what the other QACs in your area, what languages capacity they have. You probably know best what the languages that people come in and want. So I know here in Berkeley, it's mostly Spanish, but we do get people who speak Russian, and we do get people who are Arabic speaking. So if we don't have somebody on staff when they come, we have a telephone service we use, or we find find somebody locally who can come in and interpret. If you do get inundated with language requests for languages that are not you don't have internally, we can certainly assist with the cost of we have money set aside to assist with the cost for interpretation. So don't hesitate to let me know. QAC resources. The guide, as I mentioned, there will be a QAC in a box, which the state will be sending out, and your, like I keep saying, your complete count committees. And on screen is a link to those committees. And so if you haven't already connected, this has the committee and the actual staff contact there. So the only other thing I really wanted to talk about from the guide, that's in the guide that I didn't know about before, is that you need to be prepared in case somebody from the state drops in to just visit, do a monitoring visit. I don't know if they would, it doesn't say whether my guess is they would contact you first, but just that they want, I think that's their heads up that all of these things need to be in place. And we might just come by. So anyway, so just be prepared once we get set up. Again, if there's anything that you need for your setup, and we're going to try to get as many resources to you about training and everything else. Don't hesitate to let us know. And if you find resources, like I already know that in San Diego, there's already a training scheduled for the first week of February, I think it is, on QAC setup and staff training. So I'm pretty sure that's going to be happening all over the state. So, you know, if you find something really, it's Tuesday, it's not the first week, it's Tuesday, February 11th in San Diego. But if you find one in your area and you know it's going to be videotaped and posted on the internet, let us know so we can share it with everybody.
And in addition to that, Vanessa here at CFILC will be putting together a list of all of the local and county QAC trainings that will be taking place so that you guys have a full list and can attend if you're interested. I think it's really important to mention that while the guide seems daunting, this is not unusual stuff, in my opinion, for an independent living center. Because we do so much customer service and we are so used to providing one-on-one services to individuals with a variety of different disabilities and cultures, I don't really see this as anything out of the realm of what you guys do on a regular basis. So when you look at the guide and you look at pages 34 and 35, when it comes to engaging the community, when you look at the steps there, while the guide may seem big, this is stuff that you guys really already do in terms of greeting your folks, consumers, when they come in. And I think it's really important just to remember that QACs are being provided or put in place at a wide variety of places. And so some of this guide can be really helpful for folks that are extremely green at providing direct services. But for all of us, I think some of this is just very basic and a part of our everyday routine as it is. Of course, it's important to make sure that you're following the requirements indicated in the guide. But I think once you spend the time going through it, you'll see that it's really not much different than what you already do when providing services. In addition to that, I know that a number of you are, aside from going to be using the iPad that we're providing to be part of your QAC, that you are also very locally engaged and have more than one center or kiosk plan. So again, for Los Angeles, I know that there's one specific center that volunteered to provide 12 different computers and devices for folks to take the census, and that they're also, because they are engaged, and this is just another tip for any of you that haven't thought about it, you can be a QAC and a QAK at the same time, like Susan mentioned, and I know some of you are. The QAK, the kiosks, I know that that same LA center that's offering a number of options internally is going to be using some devices to take out to outreach events and make it available for folks to fill out census surveys out in the community as well. So certainly something that you can think about. And I know there's some questions that have been coming up in the chat related to that sort of stuff, and because you are partnering and being funded by others, what should be reported for us versus your other funders? Those are important questions, and we'll be going over those when Megan pulls those up momentarily. If there's any other questions live, Megan, I'm going to ask if you can undo the mute button for everybody. And in addition to questions, if any of you are doing other QAC or kiosk activities, would you mind sharing some of those with us so that others can hear what you're doing in your communities as well?
Alert, the host has unmuted all participants. Alert, audio now unmuted.
And this is Megan, so everyone is unmuted now. If you'd like to re-mute yourself, it's *6. But go ahead and ask any questions or share.
Hi, this is Keith from CalLife. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is this. So the survey, when someone logs on, I don't know this, does their name come up or something for the survey? Or, because some people get that in the mail too, right?
Very good point, yes.
How does that work?
So there will be folks, the majority of folks, we expect individuals to receive a postcard, is how it's been explained to us, that will come in the mail, and it'll have some sort of code on it, like a number, or mix of number and letters, that will be that person's identification when taking the census. So they would plug that in when they start the survey. In addition to that, if somebody has not received that, and I'll just use myself as an example, I've never taken the census. I don't ever even remember getting anything in the mail about it. So if I'm coming into your center and I want to take it and I don't have a code, I still have that option. It's just not going, it's going to ask you, do you have a code or do you not have a code? And then you can still take the census, and you will be putting in some additional information that obviously the U.S. Census does or does not already have on you based on whether or not they sent you a postcard. So they've told us through trainings at the state that regardless if you have that code or not, or say you lose your postcard, you can still take the census survey no matter what, and it'll be the U.S. Census Bureau that has to filter and figure out which person is which and did they originally have a code or not. And that's why it's so time consuming when the census ends to be able to match up everybody. It could be that somebody also takes it twice. It would stop you in part of the process, is what we've heard, but there's no reason why you can't. If somebody forgot or wasn't sure if they took it or not, they can certainly be encouraged to do it again. And we've been told that they would be stopped if they, through the system, if their name came up as already being somebody who took it. Susan, do you have anything to add?
No, that's it. That's my understanding.
Okay.
This is Megan. Juan shared in the chat. He said these postcards will not be delivered to PO boxes by the census office, but some CBOs are sending reminders to PO boxes in their counties.
That's a great suggestion too, Juan. So those of you that maybe serve a lot of folks that have, or not serve a lot of folks, either way, that have PO boxes, you might want to send out a reminder as well. And of course, you can market and promote as much as you want through your consumer databases, whether that's when you send out your consumer satisfaction survey, adding a note in there about the census and that you're a QAC, or sending out emails to folks, letting them know that they can come to your center for support and accommodations to take the survey. And then reminding folks that you serve that have PO boxes that they might not get something in the mail, but they can certainly come in and take the survey at your location. Thank you, Juan.
This is Russell from RIL. And our question is the hours of operation requirement for QACs.
So that they want you to be open during whatever your regular hours are. So if you're open 9 to 5, that's, you know, there's nothing beyond those regular business hours that you're required to do.
And just to sort of tag team on that, if you find that you have folks that can't come in during that time, again, I would really familiarize yourself with other QACs and QAKs. I was really pleasantly surprised when I saw that grocery stores are going to be QAKs. So there's kiosks like a bridal registry or an ATM machine that you'll be able to go into the grocery store and use the kiosk to take the survey. That's how much California wants to make sure that we get a complete count.
Christina, this is April. I had a question about whether or not I had permission to share this with our local complete count committee, or if you're planning on doing that in Sacramento, because this is the first, whenever we have questions about what is a QAC, QAK, and what are our requirements at our SAC committee, they were waiting for the date just as you were. So this is the first time I think anyone in our county is hearing this. Can I share this out and just credit?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
absolutely.
They probably got it Wednesday when everybody else did.
Okay.
Yeah, they were really, you know, they've been really behind, and we keep being told, Susan and I, that we are really ahead of the game. And because we had already given you guys today as the save the date, we had been biting at the bit ever since our last meeting to get this darn information so that we could be ready and not have to reschedule today's meeting. So you are absolutely welcome to use the archive of it. And of course it will be captioned. So once it's up, we will send you guys the link to both the first orientation that we did and this one. It typically takes Megan about 2 weeks to archive a webinar before it goes up live.
I have a question about
okay, so anything like if I want to know it, like saying here, protect the document. If I want to know anything about that, I would just move this thing up to this area.
Does it show? Just press the next.
I'm sorry, is somebody asking a question or having a conversation?
Yeah, that's all you gotta do is just press next, and it doesn't show any directions. It's not gonna work.
Or it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Oh, so I have to go back down to
next. Yeah.
We're hearing a conversation between two people.
Takes time. You get used to it.
Oh, okay.
It takes time, you know.
If you can put us on mute. Does anybody else have questions or want to share what other activities that you're doing related to the census?
Christina, this is Paula. I do have a question. Actually, it goes back to the first seminar that I couldn't participate in. When is the effective due beginning start date for the contracts? Is it the day we send them back to you guys, or?
This is Susan. The date was on there. I believe it was, and now I can't remember. I have to look at, I don't have one city. I've processed them all with and stuck them away, but I can send that out to you. It was either that date, like January 15th or something like that, or February 1st, but I'll let you know.
Okay.
I'm going to stop sharing so I can see my computer, then I can let you know.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up one right now too so that I could look and find it. Are there any other questions while Susan's looking? Or if anybody remembers their contract, let us know that too.
Right. Also, just to let you know, guys know that so I pretty much have everybody's when's coming agreements. I have a lot of invoices, but not everybody's invoice. And we're planning on sending those checks out on Tuesday. So if you haven't gotten me your invoice, it'd be good to get me your invoice by next Tuesday so we can process it. We'll also be putting together, we just got something like 25,000 flyers from the census office delivered. And we're going to be packaging those up and emailing each of you a set of those flyers. They're in English and Spanish, and there's also a poster, which is great because we discovered a lot of places didn't want to just take the flyers, but they said that they would put a poster up. So these are things that you can put in your own space. You can put in the building space. You can give to people to take and put in their apartment buildings. And we're also going to create our own poster that has people with disabilities on them. So they seem more relevant, and because these posters don't have, show disabled people. But so those materials will be coming. Let's see.
The term of the agreement is January 6th through September 30th of this year.
Right.
This is Donalyn. I have a question.
Go ahead, Donalyn.
We haven't sent in our invoice yet because, first of all, I apologize. I've been on an unexpected medical leave now for about 3 weeks, so I'm trying to keep up with this. But we were holding off on sending our invoice and signed contract because we thought you also had to have the certificate of liability from both our general liability insurer and our workers' comp with that at the same time. Is that incorrect?
Oh, you can send, I'll trust you guys that you'll get them to me. So you go ahead and send me your invoice.
Okay, and on the workers' comp certificate, we need that even if we're not hiring people specifically for the census contract, if we're just using our regular employees?
Your general liability is good enough because on the agreement you signed and said you had workers' comp, so we're good.
Great, good, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm sorry, is there another question?
Yes. So we have 2 apartment complexes here in Orange County that Bill McIntosh helped to develop a long time ago. And they both have all residents with disabilities. I'm wondering if we can do a portable QAC for a certain period of time to make it possible for those residents to complete the census in a convenient way.
Of course.
Yes, you absolutely can.
Okay, good. Thank you.
This is Armando. I'm with Tri-County Independent Living, and I'm working on the census part with my boss, Donalyn. And I participate in a local complete count committee here in Humboldt. And one of the things that they have offered us is that we're able to actually get our custom flyers and or posters printed through them, because they have, I think, a budget of $25,000 for printing. So if you guys are looking to get custom things done, I would recommend seeing if your complete count committee could do that for you.
Oh, great. Thanks for that tip. And also, so we'll send you the digital files then of the poster that we make in-house, and you can have them printed there.
Hey,
awesome. Thank you.
This is Keith. I have another question.
Hi,
Go ahead, Keith.
Okay, so let's say you're out in the community at an event. Are we only targeting people with disabilities? Let's say someone comes to your booth or whatever and they have a non-disability. Do we still help them with registering, doing the survey?
I was saying, I wouldn't turn anyone away, but I think that's going to have to be an organizational decision. I would encourage you guys to make it available to everybody, but of course prioritize people with disabilities as well as older adults. But if somebody, that's the only way they can do it, or it's going to be most convenient, I absolutely would rather have them counted than not.
Yeah, I'm just a little hesitant to ask someone with a
right.
A hidden disability, say, do you have a disability? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, you can let anybody. I wouldn't turn anyone away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good question, Keith.
Hi, this is Juan. Just a little tip as well. I recommend that everyone on the call and or their staff joins the partner portal. The California Complete Count office set up this really great portal with resources, newsletters, and just information on the census.
Good, that's a great one. And you have to send them a request to do that, and then they give you access. And many of the Complete Count committees have drop boxes, and they're open to everybody. Like the San Francisco Complete Count Committee has a Dropbox with great images for older adults. They've got their own, most of them have their branding on them, but I think you could, if you wanted to do something with older adults for outreach and do your own graphics, there's things, and like different Complete Count committees have materials in languages that we might not have access to because they have a lot of people who speak a certain language in their county. So we can try to, I know that the state office said they have a list of those drop boxes. I haven't received it yet, but I'll nudge them and we'll send that out too.
This is Amanda. Could I add something to a tip?
Yeah, go for it.
So since I've been participating since I think October in the Complete Count Committee, and I was reviewing a lot of their marketing materials, and a lot of them are not accessible for people to have disabilities. So what I try to do is remind individuals when I'm at the meetings what the accessibility, font is, what colors to use, the spacing, and they always really take that into consideration when they're designing. And also, because we have a reader in our office, we also offer, for anyone that's doing a flyer for the Complete Count Committee, they always send it to us to review for accessibility. So that's something I think I would share with you guys' local Complete Count Committee.
That's great. Anything else people want to share or have questions about? Okay, Megan, are there any additional questions from anyone in the chat who's not on live?
No, there don't seem to be.
Okay. Well, we'll give everybody a minute just in case if something else comes to mind. And while we're doing that, I will just remind you all, like Susan said, there will be some additional trainings provided via webinar. Webinars are always captioned and archived. They will be captioned and archived and then placed on the disabilityorganizing.net website under the resource library section. I will also make sure that we send out the links to them when they become available as well. And then we have our community organizing, those of you who are the contact person for the outreach and the actual work of the kiosk and doing census stuff. We have our calls that will be taking place on Thursdays, and I'll be sending you guys out a reminder. It'll be every 2 weeks, just a quick check-in in case if anything comes up. It'll be more discussion. It won't be archived. It will just be basically making sure everybody's getting the technical assistance that they need, and if anything is coming up where you have barriers or want to discuss something, that will be the place to do that. In addition, I think we will be obviously mailing you some information and the flyers that Susan mentioned, but aside from that, I think we are good. Is there anything else, Susan, that you can remember that I've forgotten?
No, I think that's it. Just, watch your mail for the materials, the hard copy of these materials, the iPads, and the checks. So, and encourage you, if you haven't sent your invoice, go ahead and get it to me. It's, the deadline is not Tuesday. We'll just be sending out a bunch of them on Tuesday. We do checks usually once a week. So if you get it to me the following week, you'll go in the batch then. And just saying, it's like great to be working with you all and get to know you. I hope I get to visit you. We definitely want to take some road trips to help get out the count with you. So.
And I also want to remind folks that we have a census outreach webinar on marketing and outreach, specifically with Kyla and Lawrence, scheduled for Thursday, January 30th from 11 to 12:30. Again, they will be leading that. Megan will be on, and captioning will be available. It will be archived as well. That information was also in the follow-up email from our first call that had saved the dates for next steps. Well, with that, I think we're ending early, which is terrific. Anything else anybody wants to add?
Thanks, Susan and Christina, for putting this together.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Have a good weekend.